What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Black Side of Liberty. It's your man, Governor Wildstar. I appreciate you all for tuning in to this very special show with a wonderful guest who I'll be introducing to you guys momentarily. Of course, if you guys are watching, please definitely be sure to drop a comment or question during the show. I'll do my best to incorporate it into the conversation, or maybe our guests will be able to do so as they see the comments and questions come in on the screen. But like I said, please definitely be sure to say something while you're out there. Let us know that you're watching and enjoying the programming. And if you are, definitely be sure to subscribe, especially if you're out there watching from YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm almost at 30,000 subscribers, which I couldn't have done it without you guys. So please continue to help spread the word, help me grow my audience, help us expand this liberty movement so we can get more people involved in what we're doing to bring back liberty, not only to the state of California, but all over the nation, and that's what we're doing here on Black Side of Liberty, is introducing those libertarian candidates to you that you probably may not have heard of. So hopefully you can get behind their campaign and get them elected, especially if you live somewhere where they're going to be serving you, we the people. Got Lady Wildstar in the house. Hey, Crystal Wildstar, thank you for watching. If you guys haven't seen my last chat for the culture, I was able to feature my beautiful, lovely, extraordinary wife, Lady Wildstar. So please be sure to check out that chat. And like I said, in the meantime, I do want to introduce to you my guest who is waiting in backstage, who I don't want to hold up any longer because I'm pretty sure he's a busy man since he is running for Senate out there in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, give it up for Mr. Tom Queter in the house. What's up, Thomas Queter? Welcome to the Black Side of Liberty, my man.
First, I want to thank you for saying my name right. People like to get that wrong. It actually translates to "too free" from old French.
You said what again?
My last name can also be a verb in old French that means "too free."
All right, I like that. So you make it literal to bring back freedom and liberty,
Absolutely.
with your name. So ladies and gentlemen out there, if you are in New York, District 52, please be sure to vote for this man, Thomas Daniel Queter, who is running for office and like his name says, stands for freedom itself, literally. So, Tom, we met during the Dan Taxation is Steph Berman campaign for President of the United States of America on the Libertarian ticket. And that's how our paths kind of crossed. So I got to know a little bit more about you and vice versa. But if you could take a moment, just introduce yourself to the people out there and let them know who the hell is Thomas Queter.
Well, I'm Thomas Daniel Queter, as you know, and I'm running for Senate in District 52. That's Broome County, Tioga County, Shenango County, and a little piece of Delaware County, because New York likes to gerrymander quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see how they change those lines this cycle. I've been a disability advocate for the last 6 years, working outside the system, finding solutions for those who are not served by the system but still have needs. And in New York, as my social workers continually tell me, and a bunch of other social workers that I talk to, the systems are quite literally designed to kick people off of services. New York State lost my legs 4 years ago. I just made them recognize that I have legs. And that's through the UAS, or Universal Assessment System, which is a rather long process. And there's a lot of details to it. And, in my case, that mistake was kind of a joke, right? I made a joke out of it. But the reality there is that if that kind of a mistake, because it's so complicated and it's out of the hands of the individual or the individual's direct family or caregiver, that could lead to someone's death. And, that's why I'm passionate about serving other people's needs. I'm working with a gentleman in Gloversville who has, multiple disabilities, one of them being diabetes type 1. One of his other disabilities causes him to have frequent infections, get sick a lot. And when someone with diabetes type 1 gets sick, they have to test their blood sugar more. However, he's only allowed a 1 month supply of blood testing strips. So he actually goes a week or more with diabetes type 1, not able to test his blood sugar. Wow. And so I'm helping him with a workaround to see if we can get through the system to get him a different device that reads your blood sugar through the skin. And it's good for quite a while. And, you know, if we have to crowdfund it, we will. Crowdfunding is usually the solution here. When it comes to something like a ramp, I usually end up calling local contractors in whoever's area around the off season. You'd be surprised how many kind people are out there. Sometimes the first step is to talk to their family, their friends, and their neighbors, and see who's willing to help. And this has gotten to the point where I now have social workers sending me texts. I'm not allowed to help this person. What's the workaround? How do we do this? Right? I mean, when the people who work in the system, because they're so passionate, are asking me how to find the solutions that the government doesn't allow, that should tell you something right there. And actually, I just learned something new the other day. I have another friend with a disability who's also an advocate, and he lives in New Mexico. In New Mexico, it took him 6 weeks to go through the process of approval and to actually have it delivered, his new wheelchair. In New York, that can take 18 months. So what's the difference? Why is it so hard in New York?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that bad here in California, I'm sure. And that's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is, I guess, with regards to the elephant in the room, when it comes to disabled people and them being represented in government, we don't see many of them. I mean, as far as presidents are concerned, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was pretty much the only, I guess, considered physically disabled president.
JFK. JFK was disabled.
What's that?
JFK had disabilities.
Okay, but as far as
he smoked weed. You could look that up.
Cover that up too. But yeah, they covered up FDR's physical disability. And I guess as far as being physically disabled, people see that as an impairment and that you're not going to be able to make correct judgments or whatever the case may be. So it's a prejudice there. And why do you think overall you don't see more disabled people being represented in government?
Well, we're libertarians, right? We know what welfare is there for. It's not there to help. It should be, but it's not. And what it actually does is oppress. And it gives people this. I was talking to somebody else on Facebook about this. The biggest hurdle to what I do with finding solutions outside the system is convincing people that just because the government said no and we can't doesn't mean it's not possible. You have to seek your own initiative. You have to find your own way when that happens. You know, there are options and it can be done. The Libertarian Party crowdfunded the wheelchair I'm sitting in right now because New York didn't give me an option that worked.
Wow.
They gave me an option that would put me to the bed to die.
Mm-hmm. And see, and that's the thing is, you would think, again, with so many needs of disabled people in the community, that there would be more representatives in office speaking on those needs, opposed to more people getting into those positions of representation and then not having a damn clue about what the people in their community actually need. And you pointed out a great thing, which is actually that more people of the community have actually responded to those needs quicker than government ever could, simply because they, number one, are unaware that they even exist, but number two, don't really accurately have access to resources to deal with those needs immediately. So it is kind of...
And the really important factor right there is that it's our economy that matters. The better our economy is, the more our communities have, the more your neighbors have, the more they can help you when you end up in this situation. And by age 65, the age of retirement, 42.8% of people at least are diagnosed with a disability. And there's a strange interaction here. The elder generation does not like to call it disabled or that they have a disability. I was dealing with an elderly group locally a few years ago, and they really ended up not working with me because they were more focused on aging in place, which means you get to stay in your home, which New York also makes difficult. And that's because of a stigma. And the stigma is old and it's generational and it's going to take some time, but we have to keep working at it. Through the 50s, 60s, and 70s in particular, state-run institutions, which we now know as snake pits, that's what they're called, because they house those with severe disabilities in extremely inhumane manners. I won't break your hearts tonight. Sometimes I do. They were largely shut down in the 80s and late 70s. And, they were terrible places. But, there's another problem here. Today's homes for those with disabilities and the elderly, yes, they're better, but they're still cruel. And people don't realize that. I grew up around the Oxford Veterans Home, and actually someone I grew up with quit her job as a nurse there because when she went to her boss for a cream for gentleman's sores, bed sores are a thing, which I'll speak to more in a minute. He actually gave her capsaicin cream. And for those of you out there who know what capsaicin is, that's what makes hot peppers hot. Do you want to put that on open sores? So,
Yeah,
these.
that doesn't even make sense. I mean,
It doesn't, no. And it took 12 years for the FDA to ban the practice of electrocuting autistic children with voltages higher than we use for violent offenders when the police need to use a stun gun. And they would do this for 7 hours straight. They'd strap the poor kid to the table. They'd electrocute him over and over again. There's video of this online. You can find it on YouTube. Fox News actually reported on it. In 2008, there was a protest of these challenged children forming their own protests, signs that said "Stop the torture," and it never really made the news much, but a blip here and there. And it took 12 years for the FDA to ban that practice.
my God. See, it's ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure that's probably because a lot of people didn't even know it exists. The practice existed. And it wasn't until they mobilized and, started speaking out against it where it got overturned. But it's crazy that, again, it should take us having to rally against the system to have these measures put in place where we're just treated humanely, like with bed sores, which you were talking about. That happens in our nursing homes also with our elderly community,
And the real sad part here is that most of these things are subsidized by tax dollars. That was the Judge Rotterdam School in Camden, Massachusetts, just over from the New York border. It was actually a New York child who made the news. And if you find that video, make sure you have a strong stomach. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And there's a lot of things about government that, it's unsettling, very troubling, even right now with their response to this whole coronavirus thing, which I'm pretty sure, your community has been impacted by also. And that's one of the things that I kind of like to ask all of my guests is, what has been the response in your community to the whole coronavirus quarantine, lockdown, precautions, or whatever the case may be? Because we hear one thing in the news, in the fake news, mainstream media, whatever the case may be, but from the horse's mouth, boots on the ground, on the front lines, what has been, your neighbor's response to what's going on?
Well, I live in a very small rural town, and social distancing is quite easy. You go outside and you might have to walk 15 minutes to find a person. But it's mixed, and just like you said, it really depends on how much news they watch. If they watch too much news, they've got too much fear. I'm not a COVID denier in any way. I'm actually at risk, but I'm at risk for the common cold as well. However, I'm very used to not having adequate access to health care. And I told you earlier before we started this show, I did bring a special guest. I brought my dentist today. I had a tooth pulled a few weeks ago. This is my dentist. because I don't have access to a dentist that will serve me. Well, they end up claiming that I refuse service because these nice ergonomic chairs that they have, with all the tools attached, and it's the only place they can work on you. I actually can't sit in them without breaking my femurs. So this is my option. I pulled half a molar the other week.
Wow, that's crazy. And it's sad.
Have you ever had a tooth pulled?
And this is another, I guess, effect of this lockdown, this quarantine that has happened on people in the community that, like I said, isn't being spoken about in the news. You actually have medical professionals turning away people that actually need, medical attention. And maybe it's not coronavirus related, but, you still need to make sure that your health is optimal. And like you said, you are a person that I guess is technically at risk, but you have always been at risk. So you're braver than most, and by living this life, where you're constantly faced with fear. But like most Americans, we go out there courageously. We live our lives. You're a perfect example of that. And again, are being denied service simply because of, uh, I, I guess your physical ability or whatever.
I would actually argue that I was more prepared because I've always had to take care of myself. There are some things that I get medical procedures for, and some things work and some things don't. But by and large, my situation is unique. And the reality is everyone's situation is unique, and you never know what's going to happen.
Right. You're
and
right.
Our healthcare systems are getting modeled after these cookie cutter, one size fits all things, and that doesn't work. That just doesn't work. I was talking about my dentist here a while ago, and I have a friend in Sherburne, just outside my district in northern Shenango County, and she has a child with disabilities. Not long ago, I believe it was early spring, he had a seizure, which is one of the effects of one of his disabilities, and he broke his front teeth. And so they went to the emergency dentist, and the dentist told them that they weren't savable, because that's what you can do. You go directly to the dentist, and they're supposed to be able to save your teeth if you're quick about it. And referred them to I believe, an orthodontist, a more medical oral doctor. I'm not familiar because I've never had access. But when they got to the actual doctor, the doctor was very angry because those teeth could have been saved. That means that emergency dentist just didn't want to.
Right.
And that was pre-COVID, I do believe. Well, no, maybe during. But, there's a lot of this that's actually pre-COVID. A lot of this that I'm talking about, this isn't over COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What did happen with COVID, though, is that New York and a handful of other states did deprioritize treating those with disabilities.
So they deprioritized them? Wow.
Yeah, they said, you're disabled. Nope.
That's crazy. See, and again, ignored in the news, but definitely detrimental to the health of people in the community. I would think that would take precedence over the coronavirus. Its threat against people in the community, especially when it's more direct. The coronavirus is still suspect to where, again, you have people that have these direct needs and they're being turned away. So,
right. And arguably, those with pre-existing conditions like being elderly or having an immunodeficiency for whatever reason, maybe you had cancer and went through chemo. There's a lot of reasons. Those are the people who are most at risk, and those are the people we're not protecting.
Right.
Our own governor turned away masks that were cargo ships full of masks in the beginning of this. Were sitting on the docks in New York City, but because the FDA didn't approve them, he turned them away. Remington, the gun maker, offered to make ventilators, and he turned them down, and instead he made a statement that was very volatile, by the way, very irresponsible, that he was going to use the National Guard to seize ventilators from upstate hospitals and take them to New York City.
Wow.
And my opponent, you're going to love this, my opponent came out with his own video. And he literally said he was begging the governor not to do that. You know what? He didn't show up to vote on the first round of legislation. He didn't show up to do his job, and then he begged the governor. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's how they I think that's how these Senate representatives and House representatives or assembly members, whatever the case may be, politicians, how they validate their role is to kind of blame it on the opposition when really they're the ones put in the position to actually do something about it, to actually change things. I mean, right now we have a sitting representative in Congress, libertarian, proposing, to end qualified immunity, and he's getting turned away. Justin Amish, new libertarian, and he's getting turned away by the Democrats, by the Republicans. He has a few allies, but as far as it picking up steam, you would think so, especially with the current climate in the society, that they would want to push forward with this legislation to change things, but they aren't. And that's actually something that the governor of New York, I guess, hasn't done either. And with the police unions and their role in the community, because now they've come out to endorse the president of the United States of America. And a lot of people don't really know, I guess, how police unions work or unions in general. So I want to ask you, Tom for 52, what do you think about unions? Are they good? Are they bad? What role do they play? And should we be more supportive of them or let them have as much power to where they're speaking out and saying, this is the president that we should be supporting?
I do believe that people should have the ability to form their own collective power, but I'm a little upset with the way our unions have gone. They're not what they were intended to be originally. They take their dues, they make decisions. My mother's in a union, I've seen it. She's always upset over what the union has done with her coverage or her this or her that. And she's like, I'm paying for this. So, I mean, good, bad, ugly, it seems like our unions have turned into political tools, and that's unfortunate because they're supposed to be for the people. We were talking about the police. In New York, 50-A was repealed. That did get rid of qualified immunity and technically make the records of police officers' conduct on the job attainable. It's been difficult. I know some people who are trying, and they still haven't really been able to, but it's a step. And I applaud the people who voted to repeal that. However, we need to make sure it works. This is New York State. You can barely get the DMV to work properly, let alone disability services.
I think that's just universally throughout the country. What DMV actually works like, a well-oiled machine. I mean, it's an unpleasant place to be altogether, and it seems like most government places are, whether it's the DMV or the Social Security's office or the elections office, as I'm sure you know, as a candidate filing paperwork and going through that whole rigmarole.
That was the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I live on Social Security, SSI. They mail me a redwood tree worth of paperwork every year. Becoming a candidate for Senate was the easiest thing I ever did in that regard. I didn't even need a valid ID. It was expired.
Oh my God! See, and what if they made it that easy to actually, get these government programs up and running, but they don't, or to have access to those resources, which they don't,
And there's an awful lot of man hours and brick and mortar overhead costs and system costs in making sure we don't help people.
Right.
So we're taking all of that out of the community. I mean, when people try to tell me that welfare works as it is, I say, fine, I'll give you $2 for every $10 bill you got. and so some of my initiatives are really to fix that, we're libertarians. We all want that libertarian utopia overnight, right? The burn it all down libertarians. And I understand the passion. I understand where the feelings come from. But this is New York, and you're never going to win, and you're never going to make progress doing that. So a step-down approach is what I'm going after. Let's cut the waste first. Let's give some opt-out situations where Instead of getting specific services, we can give people the money we could spend on those services so that they can meet their own needs.
Exactly.
That's a step. And what you'll find, what I believe we will find, is that more and more people will opt out and choose that, and they will have better lives, and they will rise above welfare instead of being trapped in it.
They're
not even allowed to save it for the needs that the government doesn't meet.
I mean, and to tell you the truth, it seems to me like these police unions or these unions in general, they are in a welfare position because they are, collecting, reaping benefits from the state as public employees, but then they're also lobbying the state and kind of forcing the state to make choices that benefit them and them only. So when it comes to collective bargaining, they have a little bit too much power, especially when it doesn't benefit those employees, wouldn't you say?
Well, is it forcing though? Nick, let me ask you: if I offered you $10,000 to make a decision in my favor, and you accepted, is that force?
That is true. They are not really forcing them, but we have heard stories, of course, where they've used means of violence to, I guess, pressure and force these politicians to make choices that, again, benefit them and them only. So we have situations like that, especially with these police unions, where you have, again, a politician such as myself that may want to make a move to disband those police unions or defund them. And, they use tactics to, to scare and intimidate those individuals or groups from wanting to pursue that any further. We do have that happening now, and in New York, I've seen videos of it where they're rolling down the street doing like a police parade at 3 o'clock in the morning, and these have all been orchestrated by police unions.
Well, King Andy has militarized the police, and he has an army, and that's what we need to realize. Increasing that power is not a good thing. However, pardon me, it's not COVID. I have allergies. The interesting thing here is I have friends who are police officers, right? I've talked to them over the years, and I tell you what, you get a little bit of whiskey in these guys, the first thing they complain about is bad cops they're not allowed to call out. The second thing they complain about is not being able to not give the tickets that they don't think are just, to not be able to let people go with a slap on the wrist without putting them through the system, right? Cops are not bad. The systems they have to work in, those are what's bad.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you change that by changing the legislation. And again, if you have people within the unions that are profiting from that, maybe at the executive level, maybe they're not just a pays doing member, and they're just really doing so they can reap the benefits from whatever the union is doing, but the union leaders and the executives, the board members, etc., those are the people with the political power. Those are the ones that's having closed door meetings with these politicians and making these these deals that are not benefiting the workers, but more so benefiting them and their political goals. So we see that and hear about that happening all the time. It's just us accepting it and getting to the point where we're going to do something about it, because they have too much power, especially when it comes over providing a service like safety to people in the community that they were sworn to protect. And they see them as a threat.
And, there's an interesting dichotomy here. In New York, a lot of the conservatives, they're back the blue, but at the same time, they're against these SAFE Act and red flag laws, and they don't realize who's going to enforce those. And who's going to get more power out of this?
Exactly. Right. And it's the police unions and the police officers. So, and again, with them using their collective bargaining power to, close out particular groups, we see that happening all of the time. And now it's happening through our electoral system with the Postmaster General, who's basically making moves to make it more difficult for people to vote by mail. As much as people want to blame Trump, you got to look at what the Postmaster General is doing, okay? And he's directed post offices all over the country to remove post office boxes. So there's less post office boxes for people to go to and mail in their mail-in ballot. You've had stories where you've had deliverers of mail, the mail person, changing people's voting status and or throwing ballots away, or not delivering them at all. So with what's happening with our voting system and everything being so questionable about what's going to happen with this general election here in November, and the history of disenfranchised voting in America altogether through the Civil Rights Act, etc. Do you think that disenfranchised voting could actually be fixed in America? And if so, I guess how will we do it?
Well, if it doesn't get fixed, we could always follow the model of Ukraine. You remember when they threw that guy in the dumpster?
You said what again?
A politician in the Ukraine was thrown in the dumpster, literally. They picked him up, they threw him in the dumpster, right?
Oh,
and if we don't fix our voting systems, and if we don't fix our government systems all around, maybe that's what it'll come to. I don't think it's now, but let's see what happens. I mean, it seems like our politicians are sure pushing to see what happens. I mean, how much anarchy are they asking for, right? I mean, they're blaming other people for being upset, and yet they just continue to make the masses upset. That's actually psychological warfare. I had a conversation with Ken Armstrong about this. We do this in third world countries to overthrow dictators that we put in place. But it is psyops. That's what it is.
Yeah, and you're right. It's crazy that American operatives, we've actually had, military operations where it's been to remove a person to power that we felt like was a dictator, whether it be Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi, where we send in troops and it's a military operation and we remove them from power just to kind of create a vacuum for power and to institute the dictator of choice that we like. Like, I guess this guy Lukashenko out there.
We arguably instigate all of that, right? I mean, we place our troops, we place our bases, we're there, we're a presence, we're a threat. And that reminds me of what my cousin told me happened in Pittsburgh. He was at the Pittsburgh protest and it was peaceful. And then a guy about 15 feet from him got shot in the eye with a rubber bullet out of nowhere, literally knocked the guy's eye out. And all of a sudden, this protest is now a riot. Well, what are you going to do when things like that start happening, right? Are you going to sit still? Are you going to be calm? Are you going to say thank you for shooting me in the eye?
Right. And that's disgusting. That, like you said, these police protests, these peaceful protests, are being exacerbated through police force.
And instigated. They're being instigated. It's no different than when a cop shoves you to get a reaction so he can make an arrest.
Right, exactly. And yeah, they get to use projectiles that are actually, unlawful for we the people to use. You can't buy rubber bullets in the state of California because, it's a liability. So you got to shoot to kill in the state of California. It's the law. So, but yeah, police officers can shoot rubber bullets all day long. They can, use tear gas, which is banned from war fields.
That breaks the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, exactly. And so we actually have, UN violations when it comes to our civil rights as Americans here in this country. And you may have some civil rights violations claims or lawsuits through the UN at some point. But for voting in particular, I'm not sure if that's something that we would be able to lobby the world courts to assist us for. I think that's something that we American people should have to deal with first and foremost, instead of running to a government body, to do for us, right?
Right. So, I mean, there's an important question to ask here with the two conversations we've had. If we have a government that will electrocute autistic children for 7 hours straight for the severe infraction of refusing to remove his jacket, do you really want to trust them with more police power?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's the same government. It's the same officials.
I don't. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. And shit, the government's pretty big, so I wouldn't be able to throw it pretty far. So, you know, and it's a shame that a lot of people don't think that way, especially with this whole coronavirus thing, to put so much faith in the government, in them providing an actual solution to this problem that is happening and has taken hold on all of our lives. But yeah, they're sort of the ones that created it and put us in this situation to begin with their inept leadership. So I guess that's something that you would have to be fixing along the way if you were to get elected, you know, as a Senate representative out in District 52 in New York, correct?
Correct. And, you know, we're looking for a few things for the campaign. We've got some good traction, got a lot of good volunteers, we've got a fair chunk of money. But the reality is, my incumbent doesn't have to raise money, he has money. And we've raised quite a bit, but we need to hit that $100,000 mark. It is a one-on-one race with an incumbent who has made quite a few mistakes, and it's very winnable. Actually, I was going in this, you know, fight the good fight, grow the party, make the difference. Now it really looks like I can win. But we really need that money, and we really need more volunteers on board. Our canvassing goes well. We have pretty good hit rate and pretty good success rate when we canvass district communities. I believe Owego in particular went very well.
So
But
can I ask a
the
question?
problem is number of feet on the ground and number of dollars for advertising. We do have some advertising in the works. We've got some TV commercials and radio commercials. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be on the radio in the morning, WEBO. And after that, we're going right to a producer's location to make some radio and TV ads.
All right. So I want to ask you a question because I get asked this, and a lot of people still probably don't have a full concept of it. But since you are running for office and you mentioned that, I want to ask that and slip that in there. Why do candidates ask for money? What is money going to do?
Right now, we're looking for enough money to house and feed some volunteers in district to make them coordinate. But largely, it's going towards advertising. You have to have that advertising, especially in COVID-19 situation. I mean, right here in New York, I think gatherings are limited to 50 people, and that's hard to do when you're trying to do, you know, large scale politicking. Apparently, the other two parties get away with it still, but you know, we'll be shut down. And what we really, really need is the ability to advertise and to get out there. And you know, the sad fact here is that you can vote with your dollars. We need campaign money. We need campaign funds. And if you don't vote with your dollars, we're not going to get the votes at the polls. That's really all it is. I have an excellent team. My campaign manager is, I constantly tell him to take care of himself because he is killing himself to work for the campaign. And you know, he's very dedicated. My administrative assistant, she's amazing. My fundraising team is great. My treasurer is amazing. I can't even begin to tell you about the policy team. Those guys are like sharks. They never stop hunting. They just want to work, work, work. And you'll notice as we go along, the policy on the website just grows and grows and grows. We keep adding this and we keep adding that. And it's because they love the work. And unlike the other two parties, they're doing this unpaid. There are a few people who really deserve to be paid, and we can't pay them.
Right.
And
And a
there
lot
are
of people don't realize the sleepless nights that comes along with campaigning. And like you said, these are people that are doing it for free. They're truly committed to the cause and the advancement of liberty. They believe in you and what you will do once you're elected. And they trust you as a representative to, again, support your candidacy. And a lot of people don't realize the investment in that alone, you know, because I guess they don't just see it as being like effort that's kind of pointless, you know, when you have big money controlling politics. But that's the way that we can shift things. Like you said, we got to start voting with our pocketbooks if we actually want to have true representation and shift the powers of leadership in government. Then we got to start putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, and I would like to speak to something else that it's a criticism that libertarians get. What's the big deal about seating one libertarian? Well, in my case, I've already been working across the borders. I have 3 other legislator candidates who have committed personally to me. I'm not going to name their names, but they will switch to LP whether they win or lose. So that means if they win, that'll be 4, not 1, 4, right? That's more power. And beyond that, I'm actually good at talking to all parties. We were talking earlier about submitting my petitions and how my invalid ID actually worked. So that was the beginning of the COVID-19 situation. The governor passed this policy and ruled that the submission period started the day before they actually made the ruling. Apparently, we all have time machines. So we 4 little libertarians, we carpooled to the BOE in Albany, and we're there. And there's this crowd from all the parties, right? Because everybody's just trying to like make that deadline. And I start talking about what I know. You know, I'm a disability advocate. I advocate for small community initiatives. I advocate for more freedom and help from communities to communities within communities. And I notice that representation from all New York parties, right? They're turning their ear toward me. They're coming closer. And in the course of that hour and a half, 2 hours, we got kicked out. We got kicked out for not socially distancing because everybody was listening to what I had to say. And to keep us from getting sick, they made us stand outside in the rain. That's our government.
Yes.
But, I mean, think about that. I have the ability to talk to anyone. That comes from my advocacy. When you're dealing with individuals in disability situations, their situations are different. And I've done this nationwide and even outside the country. And you have to learn that ability to understand these different situations. And when you learn to talk to people who are from different angles, different perspectives, and different situations, you learn to talk politics in ways that make everybody listen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, but again, it takes the person that's educated in listening to be able to articulate, those issues in a way to where those people that are expressing them feel like you can provide them with an answer, a resolution to get to a common place, that middle ground that they want. And a lot of representatives don't. They claim they're listening, and once they get elected, they do a completely different thing. You know what I mean? And we see that more happening more often nowadays than not. But again, Tom, I definitely hope that you get an opportunity to get in there and represent people. And I don't tell any of my guests what I'm ever going to ask on here, so I appreciate you for answering all of my questions. And I do have one more before I let you go. And it may catch you a bit off sideways because I do ask people a little bit of controversial questions on here because I like to clear the air about stereotypes, misunderstandings, all that good stuff. So I want to ask you one thing that I guess when it comes to Black and white people and different cultures is temperature wise, white people seem to like cold ass temperatures. I mean, like I'm from Wisconsin. They have like a polar bear club where you got a whole bunch of guys that will go out there and jump in some freezing ass cold water. And they you get a sprinkle of Black person in there every now and then, but mainly it's a lot of white people. You go in their house, it's like 60 degrees, and average temperature in the Black household is about 75, 80 degrees. And I guess so. I want to ask you, Tom, why do white people like cold temperatures? Are you able to answer that question in any way, shape, or form?
In regards to race, no, but in regards to myself, I'm mostly torso. Your organs generate your heat, and so I'm like a big furnace without enough radiator.
So you always running hot over there? Is that what you said?
No, it's actually a part of the condition. Children with my condition can die in winter when parents put a winter coat on them. You'd think they would need that, right? But the limbs are smaller. You're pressed against a wheelchair for half your body. And your organs aren't shrunken like a skeleton, so you just don't radiate the heat you produce. And
Oh,
as far as race goes, I have no idea, man.
well, hey, you were able to explain that in a different way, so I guess people out there are just gonna have to live with that. But maybe
But
some.
did grow up in New York, so that helps. I mean, the winters up here can be rough sometimes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, man, I'm from Wisconsin. I know all about those cold temperatures too well. But now that I live in California, it's more fitting to, climatically or climatically or whatever the case, how I would like to live. But definitely, I guess when it comes to being in cold environments, nah, I'd rather not. That's why I left Wisconsin. One of the many reasons.
You know, I was worried about the heat when I went to Orlando, but it was surprisingly okay. It didn't bother me that much.
All right. Well, we got to get you out here to California sometime, get you out to the beautiful beaches, enjoy the beautiful weather. You know what I'm saying? It's been hot as hell out here. I mean, like 110. I don't know. Let me see what my temperature says right now. It says 107. Okay. It's 107 out here and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's been pretty damn hot and it's been rolling blackouts because
I
of the
hope you have a long garden hose. You're going to have to spray me down the whole time.
You got it, Tom, for 52. Again, I appreciate you for being here on the Black Side of Liberty. Everybody out there, his name again is Thomas Daniel Queter, and he is running for New York Senate for District 52. Please be sure to support him in his campaign for Senate. Thank you for being here with me, Tom.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you, Nick. It's always good talking to you.
Oh, God bless you, man. And thank you again for being here. You take care until next time. All right, you guys, that again was Thomas Daniel Queter, who is running for Senate for District 52 out there in New York. So if you are watching and you're in District 52 in New York, if you don't know what District 52 is, Google that shit. Find out if you're out there in New York, find out if he will represent you if you're in his district. And please be sure to get him elected so he can represent you and us, we the people. And if you aren't where he is, you can again help his campaign. Like he said, he does need contributions. He does need to meet that capital requirement in order to run a successful campaign. So be sure to head over to tom452.com and donate today. Okay. And connect with him on social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. All right. And yeah. To any and all of you that were out there watching, I got some comments here, like my man James Boyd, who says, I respectfully disagree with the racial stereotype concerning white people in cold weather. I grew up where Tom did, and I've been in Florida for the past 20 years. Yeah. Okay, so if you're here and you're going to be feeling disrespected by anything that I say, then you're probably in the wrong place. All right, so we're here to, again, challenge all of our previous misunderstandings or understandings or stereotypes or whatever. Have those uncomfortable conversations, talk about those things. And even though you, James, may disagree with it, I know black people, okay, and I know white people that may agree with what I had to ask. And those are the people that I'm having this conversation for, so they can feel a little bit better about their opinion. And hopefully you may appreciate that objectionable opinion in some way. But I do appreciate your comment. James Boyd says, time for 52. Please, again, check him out. And as well, Jeremy, LLCJ2Cut, Alex Code, John with an 8, I believe, and Crystal Wildstar here for dropping comments and questions. Thank you all for doing so. And there were also a few people saying BLM, Black Lives Matter, all this good stuff. And then CJ came in and say Black Lives does not matter and is black also. And as far as the moral statement goes, I think we can all agree that Black lives do matter. I mean, if all lives matter, wouldn't that include Black Lives Matter for all you all lives matter people? And again, for all you Black Lives Matter people, if someone says all lives matter, then say, cool. Well, wouldn't you agree that Black lives do matter within that, again, moral statement? But as far as the political agenda of the group Black Lives Matter, I completely disagree with that. I do not agree with their use of the moral statement to use as a vehicle to impose their will, their political will upon us as a collective, as Americans. And I think that's wrong indeed. We shouldn't let globalist people like George Soros be funding Black Power movements, I guess, and millionaires that are backing backing organizations that are corporatists. They're corporations. That's what's going on here. So it's happening right now in our country. We need to be active in speaking out against collective bargaining of these organizations. I mean, they're being astroturf, which is grassroots organizations, movements being bought out by these big money politics. And that's what's happening right now with the Black Lives Matter movement and with the by way of the Black Lives Matter Global Foundation. A lot of people don't do their research enough to know there is a difference. And that's why, you know, you have, I guess, this argument and battle going on between the message of Black Lives Matter and what the goal of the organization group behind the statement is doing. So find out, do your homework, do your due diligence. That's what I did. I hope you do. So also, like my man James Boyd here, who says he respectfully disagreed. That's the point. Just hate shoveling snow. I hate shoveling snow too. I don't think there's anybody that would enjoy that shit. Unless, of course, you're probably getting paid for it. You know what I mean? But LS says, you're right. They have hijacked the BLM term. Absolutely. I've actually been speaking out against BLM since about 2008. Okay, check my videos on YouTube. I have a video where I go to a BLM chapter meeting and was thrown out simply because I asked them, as a Black man, wouldn't you think the word or term or name Black Lives Matter alienate those allies who are not Black? So yeah, if you want to check out that video, that is on my YouTube channel. That happened around 2008. So it was a long time ago, but it'll give you some history, some background on why I personally, as a Black person, am not behind the Black Lives Matter movement, okay, or group. All right. So yeah, I appreciate you all, again, all of your comments. If you want to support what I'm doing, I am running for governor of California. Let me show you guys here. Hold on. Let me get that screen up. All right, there we go. So please head on over to my CrowdPack, crowdpack.com/C/Wildstar4Gov. Like my man Thomas Queter said, it does take crowdfunding, and crowdpack.com is a crowdfunding website for candidates. So if you would like to support my effort in getting elected as the next governor of California, please head over to my CrowdPack now. Make a donation. Every little bit does help. Like Thomas pointed out, we need that money so we can make sure that we're heard and we're seen as candidates. So that's what all of that money is going to be going towards, is to making sure I can get as much exposure as possible right now between now and the next candidacy or election, pardon me, which is in 2022. So please help out by heading over to the CrowdPack now. Also, if you are in California, please help us recall Governor Gavin Newsom by heading over to recallgavin2020.com. We are mobilizing right now to petition to recall the governor of California. We need to collect a certain amount of signatures in order to do so successfully. So please help us do so. Our previous 2 attempts to collect those signatures failed because we did not meet that requirement. So if you are watching and you're in California, please head over to recallgavin2020.com, print out that petition, sign that petition, circulate that petition, and let's get him out of office now. And if you aren't living in California, if you want to contribute to the effort, then please support us here at We Have Rights. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, grassroots, not funded by corporatists, not funded by lobbyists, funded by people like you, So head over to wehaverights.com and support the We Have Rights Corporation, which I'm a part of. We have been able to get tens of thousands of people in the state of California out there protesting against this unconstitutional lockdown. So we want to get more people out there, more people aware about these violations of their natural rights. And of course, like I said, more people informed about the recall efforts. So if you would like to get involved with the organization, just head on over to wehaverights.com, click on get updates or send us an email or whatever the case may be, find out where there's a local protest. But like I said, we definitely need money to get the word out and hold more rallies. So please click on donate and send us whatever you can, okay? It'll be much appreciated. And please definitely come back Wednesday. I'm going to be tomorrow, to Crystal's room Wednesdays, which will be right here on the Governor Wildstar YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to come back tomorrow and every Wednesday, where my wife, Crystal Wildstar, will be providing psychic readings to any and all of you out there watching. So if you want a psychic reading, jump in on Crystal Room Wednesdays on the Governor Wildstar YouTube channel or Crystal Healing Arts on Facebook. And if you want to check out the next episode of Black Side of Liberty, please come back next week, or pardon me, not next week, this Thursday. Come back Thursday, August 20th, where I will be speaking to the former vice chair of the National Libertarian Party, Alex Merced. He will be right here on the Black Side of Liberty, so come back Thursday. LL, thank you. You have a fantastic day also, and to all of my beings of light, art, culture, and knowledge out there watching, I do appreciate you for tuning in. Please come back Thursday, where I will be talking to Alex Merced, and we'll talk a bit more then. All right, till next time, long live liberty. I'm up out of here, y'all. Peace.